Every girl, at some point, dreams of that magical encounter. The one where she meets her prince, and they live happily ever after. But in real life, there was a princess who, at just 16 years old, married into the Malaysian royal family, only to make a dramatic escape 9 months later. Imprisonment, abuse, violence. This princess revealed the dark, hidden side of royal life in front of the media. How did an ordinary girl end up marrying into royalty? What happened during those 9 months? And how did she finally manage to escape from that royal nightmare? The girl in question, who looked like a real-life doll, was from Indonesia. Her full name? Manorah Odelia Pino. Born on February 28, 1992 in Jakarta, she was the daughter of an American father and an Indonesian mother. With her mixed heritage, it's no surprise she stood out from a young age, charming everyone around her. But when Manorah was just 2 years old, her father abandoned her and her mother, returning to the U.S., and she never saw him again. Not long after, her mother met a German man, and they quickly remarried, blending their families. Her stepfather's job took them all over, between the UK and France. So young Manorah grew up fluent in English, Indonesian, and French. Manorah's mother, Daisy Fajarina, always had her sights set on a life of high society. With a daughter as beautiful as Manorah, she saw the opportunity to raise her as a socialite. She hired tutors for dance and etiquette, bringing Manorah to all the elite events. By 12, Manorah had already walked her first runway. At 14, she was a stunning young woman, even landing magazine covers despite being underage. By 15, Harper's Bazaar named her one of the 100 most beautiful women in Indonesia. But just as she was becoming a rising star, she was pulled into what looked like a dream come true, but turned out to be a dangerous nightmare. At a grand royal banquet in December 2006, hosted by Malaysia's then Deputy Prime Minister Najib Razak, she caught the eye of Tengku Muhammad Fakhri Petra, the Crown Prince of Kelantan, 14 years her senior. What started as a chance meeting turned into marriage, and people thought they were witnessing a real-life fairy tale. But the ending was far from what anyone expected. In December 2006, Malaysia's then Deputy Prime Minister, Najib Razak, hosted a grand royal banquet in Kuala Lumpur. To understand this better, it's important to know that Malaysia has a unique royal system. The country consists of 13 states, 9 of which have their own hereditary rulers, known as sultans. Basically, they're like local kings. These 9 sultans form a royal council, and the King of Malaysia is selected from among them, rotating every 5 years. Naturally, a royal event of this scale attracted high-profile figures from all walks of life. Unexpectedly, 15-year-old Manorah, already a rising star in Indonesia's modeling scene, was invited to this royal gathering. Excited by the opportunity to attend such an event, Manorah showed up, dressed to the nines, radiating youth and beauty. Her presence did not go unnoticed, especially by Tengku Muhammad Fakhri Petra, the Crown Prince of Kelantan. Fakhri, born on April 7, 1978, was 28 at the time, with 2 older brothers and a sister. Despite his balding hair and his age, he had yet to marry. When he saw Manorah at the banquet, he was instantly captivated. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Fakhri made the first move, striking up a conversation with Manorah, and despite the significant age gap, they seemed to hit it off that evening. Fakhri didn't waste any time. After the banquet, he began relentlessly pursuing her, frequently flying to Jakarta just to visit her and her family. The age difference didn't bother Fakhri at all. He showered her with diamonds, rings, watches, luxury gifts designed to win her heart. He even took Manorah and her mother, Daisy, on trips, including fancy yacht parties. Fakhri seemed like a perfect gentleman, charming, polite, and generous, giving off the impression of being mature and reliable. But despite all his efforts, Manorah wasn't particularly interested. To her, the prince seemed far too old, and they just weren't a good match. While Fakhri's lavish gifts and high status didn't sway Manorah, her mother Daisy was very impressed with him. Daisy kept pushing her daughter to marry him, convincing her that marrying into royalty would guarantee a life of luxury and security. She even privately negotiated with Fakhri, making it clear that if he wanted to marry her daughter, he'd need to provide some financial compensation. Fakhri, smitten by Manohara, agreed to give Daisy a dowry of 1 million Malaysian ringgit. This wasn't a small amount, and it seemed as if Daisy was treating her daughter like a cash cow, selling her off at the right price. But with this financial arrangement in place, Fakhri gained the approval of Manohara's family. Even though Manohara was only 15 at the time, still underage, the marriage was given the green light. Daisy treated Fakhri like a son and successfully convinced Manohara to marry him. And so, on August 26, 2008, Fakhri held a lavish wedding in Kelantan. News of the young Indonesian model transforming into a Malaysian princess dominated the headlines. Manohara had just turned 16, and everyone thought that the large age gap between them would lead Fakhri to shower her with love, believing she would live a life of endless wealth and comfort. But just 9 months after the wedding, a bizarre and unexpected event revealed Fakhri's dark side, and the scandal rocked the Malaysian royal family, sending shockwaves around the world. After Manohara joined the royal family, news about the couple slowly faded from the public eye. In the rare appearances she made, people couldn't help but notice that Manohara had gained quite a bit of weight. From the outside, it seemed like the royal lifestyle was treating her well, making her look more prosperous and regal. But then, in May 2009, a shocking piece of news broke and made headlines internationally. Manohara had caused a massive scene at a hotel in Singapore, presenting her dual US-Indonesian passport and seeking asylum from both countries. With the help of the US and Indonesian embassies, she managed to escape from her husband Fakhri and returned home to Indonesia. The whole story played out like something straight out of a thriller movie, more intense than any crime drama people had seen. Here's what happened. In May 2009, Fakhri's father, Sultan Ismail Petra of Kelantan, suffered from a heart condition. Considering Singapore's superior medical facilities, he chose to seek treatment there. As the youngest son, Fakhri brought Manohara along to Singapore, accompanied by their security detail. They checked into the Royal Plaza Hotel on the 13th floor. But things took a shocking turn when, while Manohara was accompanied by her husband and bodyguards in the elevator, she suddenly pressed the emergency button. The bodyguards tried to control her, but Manohara fought back fiercely, struggling with the guards inside the elevator. Hotel security quickly arrived on the scene, and seeing the situation, they managed to calm things down while calling the police. When the Singaporean police arrived, Manohara, in tears, revealed that she had been abused by her husband for a long time and had been held captive, unable to contact her family or escape while in Malaysia. She explained that this trip to Singapore, under the pretext of visiting Sultan Ismail Petra, was her only chance at freedom. If she didn't act now, she feared her life would be ruined forever. At one point, Fakhri tried to order his guards to sedate Manohara with tranquilizers, but the Singapore police forcefully intervened. Manohara was taken to a separate room for protection, where the police assured her that no one had the right to restrict her freedom. Manohara knew that what she was doing could have serious consequences, but she had to take the gamble, and she won, with the support of Singaporean authorities, as well as help from the US and Indonesian embassies. Manohara didn't return to Malaysia with her husband. Instead, she flew back to Jakarta, Indonesia. The fact that a Malaysian princess had sought asylum in Singapore using her dual US-Indonesian passport was a scandal of international proportions. As soon as she returned to Indonesia, Manohara held a press conference. Tearfully, she revealed to the cameras the nightmare she had endured since joining the Kelantan royal family. Even the marriage itself, she explained, had been forced from the start. When they first met, she did find Fakhri somewhat likable. She didn't hate him, but with the significant age difference, marriage was never on her mind. Malaysian law requires girls to be at least 18 to marry, but in reality, child marriages were not uncommon, with girls as young as 12 being wed. To Fakhri, her age was no barrier. Determined to make her his wife, he lured her onto his yacht, assaulted her, and pressured her into marriage. After the attack, Ra returned home in tears and told her mother, Daisy, what had happened, begging her to go to the police. But Daisy, weighing her options, stopped her. She realized that Fakhri's family was powerful, and reporting the incident without any backing could bring trouble, possibly even retaliation from the royal family. Besides, Daisy believed that, aside from her daughter's young age, marrying into royalty wasn't necessarily a bad thing. An early marriage to a prince could guarantee a life of luxury and comfort. Plus, Daisy had financial problems of her own. She was in debt, and she saw this marriage as an opportunity to secure some money from her new royal son-in-law. So, what should have been treated as a crime was instead turned into a so-called fairy tale marriage, all thanks to Daisy's persuasion. Fakhri married Ra without any problems. Had the two actually been in love, perhaps it would have been a different story. But after the wedding, Fakhri, who had appeared to be a humble, gentlemanly figure, quickly revealed his true nature. Fakhri didn't cherish Ra at all. He constantly mocked her and treated her like an object, seeing her as his plaything. If the problems had only been emotional, perhaps Ra could have kept up appearances to maintain the royal image. But Fakhri's disturbing tendencies, coupled with the physical and emotional abuse, became unbearable. There were even instances where he injected her with unknown drugs. How twisted was Fakhri, really? Well, he would often wait until Ra had fallen asleep before injecting her with a drug that left her fully conscious, but unable to move, a state similar to sleep paralysis. She could see, hear, and feel everything, but she couldn't control her body. Once the drug took effect, Fakhri would take a knife and cut her, treating her like a toy. Ra was fully aware of what was happening. She could feel the pain, but she couldn't move or do anything to stop it. Her body was covered in scars, and she documented every injury. Fearing that Fakhri would inject her with more drugs while she slept, Ra became too terrified to sleep at all. Life under these conditions was unbearable. She tried to escape multiple times, but Fakhri blocked every route. After marrying into the royal family, he cut off all contact between Ra and her family. He confiscated her communication devices, preventing her from calling home. Even when her mother, Daisy, tried calling her, Fakhri refused to let Ra take the calls. Daisy made countless attempts to reach her daughter, even trying to visit Malaysia, but all her efforts were blocked. Worried that Ra might try to escape, Fakhri installed heavy security around their home, supposedly for the safety of the family. In reality, it was to keep Ra under 24-hour surveillance. She was never allowed to leave the house without being closely monitored. Even when she attended mandatory public events, it was always under Fakhri's strict watch. Ra could only put on a brave face, knowing she had no way out. Being isolated in Malaysia, far from home, she had nowhere to run. The physical and mental abuse took a toll on her, so she tried to resist by refusing to eat. Fakhri, in turn, began injecting her with hormones, which caused her to rapidly gain weight. Within a few months, her appearance changed so drastically that those who saw her in public believed the royal lifestyle was treating her well, leading to the false assumption that her weight gain was due to enjoying a life of luxury. For 9 long months, Ra dreamed of escaping her golden cage, but the opportunity never came, until Sultan Ismail Petra's heart condition required him to seek treatment in Singapore. Ra, as the prince's wife, accompanied Fakhri to Singapore to visit the Sultan. This trip finally gave her the chance she had been waiting for. Seizing the moment in Singapore, Ra took a desperate gamble to escape. While in the hotel with Fakhri and their security detail, she pressed the emergency button in the elevator, causing a chaotic scene. This bold act led to a confrontation with the bodyguards, drawing attention and ultimately involving the Singapore police and embassies. It was through their intervention that Ra finally escaped from Fakhri's grasp. In front of the media, the scandal exploded, revealing the horrors that had taken place within the Malaysian royal family. The case sent shockwaves around the world. During a press conference, Manora even showed photographs of her scars to back up her claims of abuse. She went a step further and hired a lawyer, filing a lawsuit against Fakhri in Indonesia. However, Prince Fakhri wasn't about to take the accusations lying down. He strongly denied the abuse allegations and countered by suing both Manora and her mother, Daisy, for defamation in Malaysia. Many people were willing to help Manora, but she either lacked solid evidence or was too scared to produce it. In the end, the case didn't go anywhere, and it was Fakhri who won his lawsuit in Malaysia. The court ordered Manora to pay $1.8 million in damages, but there was no way she was going to comply. She had already filed for divorce and made it clear she wasn't going to give the prince a penny, nor would she ever return to Malaysia. And so, the drama finally came to an end. Some people felt sorry for Manora, while others believed the whole thing was a scam. After all, Daisy had taken large sums of money from the prince before agreeing to the marriage. As for the truth, it's difficult to say. What's certain is that when Manora returned to Indonesia, her body was covered in scars, and her mental state was fragile. It took a long time for her to recover, but recover she did. The nightmare marriage was over, and with the support of Indonesian public opinion, Manora bounced back. Riding the wave of media attention as the runaway princess, she returned to her modeling career. Over the next few years, she even broke into the entertainment industry, appearing in several films. Today, Manora frequently appears in magazines, on TV, and as a fashion brand ambassador. In her spare time, she's involved in charitable work, advocating for wildlife protection and humanitarian causes. Occasionally, she attends high society events, but for the most part, she leads a simple life. It turns out, even without the title of princess, being herself has made her shine even brighter.